The Middleton Common Council for September 5th, 2017 to order. And the first item on the agenda is the roll call.
Here. Present.
Here.
Here. Olson. Here. Ramsey.
Here. Here.
All present.
Okay, so the first item on the agenda is the closed session. I need a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So we are in closed session now.
Hello.
Hello.
Is everybody ready? So we are going to, the first item on the agenda is the comments from the citizen present. It's limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and there's a one speaker, Crystal Strassman. Crystal. Yeah, please come. Yeah, go ahead.
Right up here.
We can pass them out. Sorry. Dear Mayor Barrar and members of the City Council, it's been our pleasure and privilege to serve the residents, commercial businesses, and the municipality of Middleton for 41 years. We come before you as both a concerned business and taxpayer. Our presentation this evening is in regards to the Conservancy Trail Rehabilitation, project number 17-119. I will start when the Conservancy Trail bids were let in April. Low bid awarded to a Milwaukee-based company, Johnson & Sons Paving. DRS was second to low bid by about $4,000. The contract was awarded to Johnson & Sons. Weeks later, in casual conversation with Peter Fortledge, who is the engineer for this project, I inquired about the Trails project and and the provider of the mix. He thought it was DRS, but was uncertain. I said I would call Milwaukee Contact and touch base. There had been no contact between Milwaukee and DRS prior to this. On May 15th, I spoke with Milwaukee, who asked for material pricing, which I offered, consistent with the pricing for Wolf Paving, Payne & Dolan, and Badgerland Excavating. On June 22nd, Milwaukee and DRS sat down to discuss the possibility for DRS to provide material and/or laying the material. I outlined the requirements during the meeting to include contract arrangements, full transparency, and full communication with the City of Middleton of our arrangements as a subcontractor. July 6th, Milwaukee requested DRS to participate in a walkthrough of the trail work. We met for the walkthrough and could not get clarification to what role, if any, DRS would have in this contract. After repeated requests during the walkthrough for DRS's role, none was provided. July 10th, I need to remind you that this bid let in April, so it's now July 10th and none of the work has been performed. After the walkthrough, Milwaukee requested a contract. We provided a contract with our standard terms and conditions. With the City of Middleton deadline approaching, I sent an email to Matt and Peter explaining DRS would not be able to provide asphalt due to lack of communication and commitment. Middleton had also stressed completion dates, so without commitment from Milwaukee, DRS would default. DRS was forced to rescind the offer to Milwaukee. The uncertainty can also be felt by Peter Fortledge, and you can see the email dated July 12th. On July 18th, I asked if there were any updates on the trail project via email, Peter and Matt. I was told as follows, quote, Crystal, I don't anticipate any resolution soon. My best guess on the information currently available is that this will likely end up being rebid in 2018. I'm concerned our bid spec on porous is too narrow and does not allow for other companies to provide pricing. I've asked for legal opinion from the city attorney on this issue and overall contract award. Matt, end quote. August 17th, I learned that Milwaukee was performing the job, but using materials that were totally inconsistent with the specifications of the bid. By our calculations, the material used was inconsistent with the bid and should have cost roughly $30,000 less. A windfall for Milwaukee? And for those who like numbers, to give an idea of how the asphalt dominated the bid, $115,000 of a $213,000 bid was paving and material, far from a one-off manhole cover. We and others were not given an opportunity to resubmit bid with the use of an alternative material. It is our opinion as Middleton business and perhaps other local paving companies were dealt a disservice in the way in which this project was contracted and executed in a non-competitive manner, resulting in a finished product inferior to what would have been realized by original bid specifications at a higher cost for the Middleton taxpayers versus what could have happened if bid competitively. We are pleased to have worked with the City of Middleton for over the past 20 years, and more recently helping the city winning National Trail Awards in recognition as top 10 places to live in the U.S. We are here tonight to realign with best bidding practices. We feel the product will not withstand the test of time, 1 year to be more specific. We have seen and used this product and welcome the opportunity for field trips to show the failure of the alternatively approved mix. We welcome the opportunity to answer any questions or provide additional documentation. Respectfully, Crystal.
Thank you, Crystal. Is there anything with me? Okay, well, any other citizens who want to speak? Any other citizens who might want to speak? Okay, so I'm going to close the comments part of this citizens present and go to the presentation by USSA CXC Association presentation by Yuri.
Hello, my name is Yuri Gusev. I'm Executive Director for Central Cross Country Skiing, which is a regional governing organization for Olympic cross country skiing and Paralympic Nordic skiing. This presentation just to outline the project. We spoke briefly, myself and Dan Urban, about this project, which is, I think, is very exciting for not just Midwest and this area, but for U.S. in general. As you can probably imagine, there are not many Olympic training sites. There's only 3 of them around the country, and there is none of them actually has cross-country skiing as a designated sport. The nice part about Olympic sites, it's just not open for Olympic athletes, but it's open to the community, and it brings a lot of inspiration to all community members to come participate from recreation to high level of athletics. So, as I mentioned, there's not many cities that have this opportunity to be home for Olympic facilities, and Middleton is was very pleasant to work with everyone from Mike to the mayor recently that came to our foundation board meeting as well, and Matt. So again, we've hosted events in many areas, including Minneapolis and St. Paul. From big cities and small cities, we host on average probably 30 events around Midwest, and we hosted events from local competition to national and international competitions like World Championships. We host in Cable, Wisconsin, and U.S. National Championships. So the terrain and community support and generous offer of the land by Dan Urban makes it a very unique and attractive place for community and for our athletes that will represent one day our Olympic and Paralympic teams. With the proximity, I think another really big piece of this puzzle is the proximity of Black Hawk Ski Club that offers ski jumping and downhill training. So between this proposed facility and Black Hawk Ski Club we can represent 5 out of 15 sports from Winter Olympic Games. That will count, if we take all the medals, 2/3 of all Olympic medals represented at Winter Games. And cross-country skiing has 12, hockey has 1 or 2. That's the difference. So we're looking at about 5 kilometers of trail, which is about 3 miles. And ideally, 2 of them will be paved and will be public open facility year-round with the trail system. And 2 miles out of 3 will be paved with lighting system and warm weather. I would call it snow-making capacity that can make snow pretty much at any temperature. That's the newest in snowmaking, and we'll be able to extend the season from early November through the March with that capacity, and to have that trail available to the community. So you can see the kind of pictures of the buildings. So this is the area that the trail system will be on, and location where the facility will be. You could see the aerial map and the trail from the other areas. So you can see the golf course just straight south from it, and Highway 14 straight north. So inside of the building, as Julie mentioned just earlier, we'll have Olympic cross-country ski museum that will represent specifically equipment that was used from 1924 games all the way through modern games. It will represent all the athletes that represented the United States at all of those games and the stories that took them to be, so to educate our community, kids and families about the heritage we have in Midwest. It will have also a high performance center necessary to get our athletes ready to do their best at our Winter Games. And I think in Korea we'll see probably the best results we've ever had at the games based on just previous world championships. And bringing those athletes that we normally see, that definitely brings, and you can see on the TV with really how strong Olympic ran right now with the TV viewing. It will bring a lot of excitement to youth, to families, and everyone participating. So that just kind of shows the section in the idea as a section of the couple kilometers of the trail. That will be one direction only. Again, will be a great place to have all kind of athletic events from running, mountain biking, skiing, and as someone mentioned, maybe you, Mike, having a lot of events that don't need to cross the roads and one directional with lights. I think that's, and we always, when we have youth involvement in events and practices, the safety becomes the big part. And even talking with athletic director at the Middleton High School, as they want to have a place for their kids to, for cross-country running and for track team as well, to provide opportunity to train. So that's a footprint of the building. That's what we thinking about 30,000 square feet. 3,500 will be located for event center that can be used, as again Julie mentioned, for non-athletic events as well, weddings, birthday parties, whatever. And also our goal is to have this turnkey facility that Madison Sports Commission can go out and bid for athletic events. And we've been working with Jimmy Patrick in the past at the different projects and with the state, with Stephanie Klatt from the state. They've been a big supporter for events that we brought in Midwest on the national level and international level. And for instance, as Julie mentioned, 2020, there is a possibility, as in my conversations with Youth Paralympics, to bring the Paralympic World Cup back in the United States and potentially in Middleton. Another mention, what I mentioned about the cross-country ski museum that will represent the heritage of cross-country skiing in the United States. So just another image. And the impact, so we used some of the data from other cities that have similar facilities. Park City, Utah, Springfield, Missouri, I think probably the closest facility. and one of the ex superintendent from Springfield, Missouri, was visiting Madison, and we've been talking with Matt about what they were able to turn their parks district into a facility that brings from all over the United States events and visitors. So those are just, again, the data from some of those, Lake Placid, some of them resort towns like Lake Placid and Park City, but some of them, like Springfield, Missouri, just typical towns.
Say those out loud because they're hard for them to see.
Okay, so annual attendance, approximately 20,000 visitors, 60 to 80% from out of Dane County, and just what traffic we see already with mountain biking and the use of that trail. I think there's a big opportunity by having this facility and expanded trail system, especially for entry-level use. That'll bring quite a bit of from outside of Dane County. $4 million in economic impact annually, and that data I think is very conservative based on what we've done with events even in the little town of Cable in Wisconsin. And $6.6 million estimated in new sales tax revenue over 30 years. So again, this is just the data from similar facilities, and some of them are much higher. That's probably on the conservative side. So that's all I have. If you have any questions.
Questions for Yuri? Any questions for Yuri? Well, great job. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
I'd like to pull out, I want to speak a little bit to item number 3 of the brewery.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so then the motion is to approve.
Also, you want to take off what Finance Committee had recommended? Number 6, the Mad City
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pond Hockey Agreement?
Okay,
We're
take that out.
removing items 3 and 6.
Okay. I need a second.
Second.
Um,
I believe you don't need a second, actually, to remove it from the consent
You
agenda,
don't?
but.
Okay, well, I don't need a second? Okay. Well, I'll call a question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. So now we need to take number 3.
I just had a couple, this application to me is very sloppy. There's, on page 2, there isn't a date on it, and on page 5, there's a date that says October 8th of 2016. And when constituents are looking at this and trying to figure out what's going on at the brewery, I think that a little more time and effort should be put into these applications. It also shows this as a nonprofit event, a benefit event. Nowhere in here I can find out what the benefit was, who it was for. I don't know if that's important or not. And then when a street closure part of Terrace, I think they could be a little more specific with that so that people like on Aurora know where it's at. And I know that they reach out to people, but it'd be nice for them to be a little more specific with that.
Okay, so what do you want to do? Defer it or?
I'd like to, we could approve it, but I'd like to make sure that, well, these dates, there's no dates on here.
Okay,
that are
so with
correct.
those corrections then.
With those corrections.
Okay.
And to tell them to be a little more consistent.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Okay,
We sure
discussion.
Yeah.
On the date part,
The date is for Saturday, October 8th,
Okay. if you-
2016.
Yeah, so just.
And it's also, it's for September 23rd on one page. It's just the date is 08 on another page.
Well, maybe we need
Another
to
page.
defer it and have them fix it before it comes back then.
Well, they have time though, because,
We have one more meeting in September.
But a little already.
Is it really for 9/23? I think the last day.
well, and it's also on first, but then, I wouldn't mind letting it go forward, but I really would like to caution them to be a little more careful with this stuff. But when it's online, it's,
Well, I think for expanded premises, it's clear September 23rd, 2017, and ending September 23rd, 2017.
right, page 1.
And then, but I'm wondering if this worksheet is what was used previously that doesn't get filled out every time, even though it's got all the correct information. So the date might be off, but the information is correct.
That's probably true, but it's a lot of this, I've seen other ones that they put through, and there's lots of scratches right over. I think that they could do a little better job of putting this out. That's, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that they,
Okay, we can pass that on to them, and I'll talk to Robin, who
okay.
handles this.
Okay,
Okay, so then it's approval with all various other things added to it. Okay, any more discussion?
So is that your motion?
I think
Or
the
second.
motion was,
a
is,
motion to approve it, but make sure that Capital Brewery is more careful next time when they fill out their applications.
and they correct the dates and those things.
Second.
And you agree with
I'll
that?
second it, yeah.
I think Joanna already was, right? That's fine.
Okay. So Joanna, that's okay with you?
Sure.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, if there's no more discussion, I call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the item number 3 is passed. Now item number 6.
Move deferral.
Need a second. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, I call the question. Now all those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? So this is deferred. So, okay, we're going to go to the old business CAL. Authorization of permit university project construction option and associated land acquisition.
Hi, we were not planning on making a formal presentation beyond what was included in your memo, but we do have our TIF engineer, Tom Stetzer, available here if you'd like to see the options again. We also have our TIF planner and landscape architect, Jeff Maloney, here, who can present and comment on the landscaping designs that were included in your packet if you'd like to see that. I have 4 brief updates, just information that we've learned about the project since the last meeting. One is that our staff met with St. Bernard's Church Council to present the landscaping options, and those were received very favorably by the Church Council. The second is that we received a telephone call today from a St. Bernard's parishioner named Mary Good, and she wanted to express her support for either of the landscaping options that were presented. We received a call and subsequently an email from David Rischmuller with the co-op. He said he understands that these procedures take time, but he hopes that the city council will make a decision because he's in limbo, he feels like, with his property with the Cinex gas station. We also had a call from Hans Zietlow representing Quick Trip, and he indicated that they will not be renewing their lease on the PDQ property on the northwest corner. We asked him if he could provide that in writing. We haven't received anything yet.
Okay, so who's going to, yes, Susan?
Yeah. I would like Tom to explain the options in terms of pedestrian safety and width of sidewalks.
Sorry. I have to turn this back on. It wasn't displaying anything on the screen, so I thought it had turned off, but I apologize. Might just take a minute to
Abby?
pull it back up.
With Quick Trip not pursuing the lease supposedly, would that decrease the amount of any of these projects?
There's a possibility that it would slightly decrease the overall amount on both the north compromise option and the both sides option, because there's a possibility that we wouldn't have to pay a relocation payment, which I believe was $70,000.
Any other questions or comments besides what Tom has to say?
Well, we're ready.
You want to go ahead and start talking before I get it pulled up with the...
Sure. I can just, hello everyone, I can verbally kind of talk through the options just so everyone can get their memories refreshed. If you remember when we came back at day one, when we started we had 4 options essentially. the options that we presented all accomplish the same goal, which was to add designated left turn bays to both eastbound and westbound University Ave. And the options included the northbound, or the north widening, the south widening, the both sides option, which took a strip of land on both the north and the south sides. And then we also came up with a north compromise option that we called it, that was kind of a reduced, skinnier version of the north widening, which helps save some of the trees in front of the church property. And the main difference between the north option and the north compromise option was the lane widths. So one of the eastbound lanes and one of the westbound through lanes was reduced from 11 feet to 10 feet. And then on the north side along the church, the terrace and sidewalk configuration changed as well. The original design had a 5-foot grass terrace with a 6-foot wide sidewalk. And the compromise option took the sidewalk down and moved it right up tight to the back of the curb and gutter. And it changed from 6-foot width to 8-foot width. So with those things, we were able to save 5 feet of space from the church, which saved a number of the trees in front of their property. So to Susan's question, the first option that was taken off the table was the full north widening, which wiped out all the trees in front of the church. So that left us with the 3 options that remained. 2 of the options had the same cross section. So the south widening and the both sides widening, which is the center option, had the same cross section. The north compromise has the modified cross section, like I just mentioned, the reduced lane width on one of the lanes on eastbound and westbound, and then the tighter sidewalk along the back curb.
But the sidewalk had the same width now all along the University Avenue, right?
So along the church, Gurdeep, the existing amount of concrete that's out there today is 8 feet. It essentially today acts as a 4-foot wide sidewalk with a 4-foot concrete terrace. It's kind of at a little bit steeper slope. So it kind of, people probably don't use that as a sidewalk today, but the amount of space, the feel that pedestrians have next to traffic would be the same.
Okay,
That's
and also,
correct.
Since you won't have that level, this will be better.
I'm really interested in the Game of Thrones there, Andy.
Let me play that for you now. Yeah, there was a reason that I already had this pulled up. I was hoping you guys wouldn't see all the stuff I have saved on my hard drive. Okay, so let's see here. There you go.
So I think the PDFs that were in your packets were the 3 options that I just mentioned that remain. So again, the north compromise option, as you can see, the sidewalk, which is right through here, is up tight along the back of curb, the 8-foot wide sidewalk. And then moving ahead, south widening, so the north curb line stays where it's at. All the widening takes place to the south with a 5-foot grass terrace, 6-foot sidewalk down here. Definite impacts to the Senex gas station, along with the Roman candle building on the south option. Both sides just takes the same cross section and runs it right down the middle of the road, and then there's impacts to both sides.
But that gives more sidewalk and terrace space.
More sidewalk and terrace space. So, in the engineering world, in any project, there's a minimum and a desirable. As an engineer, we always like to start with the desirable and lay out a roadway with desirable standards. That means desired clearances, desired turn bay lengths, desirable tapers coming in and out of turn bays, things like that. Once we lay out those options, then we look at what the impacts are and look at what impacts there are to real estate, businesses, street lights, other obstructions. And then as engineers, it's our job to try to figure out, okay, how can we maneuver this road to try to minimize those impacts? And so I feel that's what we did here. We have 2 options, I would say that have, a greater impact, and you can see those in the costs that Abby presented before that are in the packets with the total real estate acquisition costs with those options. And then the north compromise option, again, the smallest footprint, trying to minimize cost and real estate impacts while still, serving the same purpose, getting, motor vehicles and pedestrians through the corridor. To Susan's comment, pedestrians will be tighter to the roadway along this north side. The south side, will essentially stay the same as what it is today. The north side, pedestrians will be a little bit closer to the roadway, so they will be a few feet closer. To Gurdeep's point, that is what's there today. As far as the separation,
north and south, yeah, it's the same.
It's the same.
Yes.
Okay.
There are other examples of that around Madison. There's numerous situations like this where the sidewalk is up tight to the curb. On Monona Drive, for example, down by Machinery Road Bikes. I know. There's many others.
Okay, Tom, which is, of these three options, how would you rank them in terms of pedestrian safety? Which is the best for pedestrian safety, which would be the least?
Susan, I think the thing I struggle with is, I would say, I'll keep going back, it's more desirable to have a separation between pedestrians and roadways. As far as putting some sort of percentage or factor on safety on something like this, there's really no numbers that I can't tell you that there's an X percentage chance of something happening or not happening.
Rephrase that. Which of these three options would you feel most comfortable walking your children down the street with? As a parent. Not as an engineer, but as a parent.
It'd be the same as my engineer answer. Any time you can have more space between vehicles and pedestrians,
so which
that's
one
a benefit.
of these three options is that?
I would say the both sides option and the south option, which has the same cross section. It's a matter of comparing the overall project costs compared with the roadway that you'll be left with.
I'm not even thinking in terms of cost.
Any other questions?
Abby, the cost for the south and both sides, that cost doesn't include relocation of Roman candle, does it?
Yes, it does. Those are just estimates. They obviously, staff has not entered into any kind of negotiations yet. They're estimates that are based on the relocation plan that has been prepared and the appraisals.
The relocation of the building,
Just a minute.
the relocation of
the business.
but not the building.
Oh yeah, not the building.
Not-
Exactly.
Okay, and that's what we talked about.
Yeah.
Okay, Susan.
On the south one, or if we move the Roman candle, and I know you've looked into the cost of moving the building, I was looking at a photograph in the Middleton Review of the Roman candle building, or what I thought was the original the Roman candle building. It looked like it was brick on one side. And now it has siding over it. I was wondering, do we know, is it a completely framed building or is it brick with siding put on it?
From the historical photograph that I saw, which was a photograph that was taken during the construction, it happened right after the fire in the early 1900s. The building that is there now looks very similar to the building that was there before, that burned down.
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe, I don't recall it being
Front
brick.
of the building looked the same.
Right.
It was just that side, the side of it did not look like it was siding. It looked like it was brick.
Yeah, I don't recall.
That's something we need to at least.
Yeah, my understanding is that it's wood. It's not brick.
Any other questions for Abby or anyone else?
In the paperwork you gave us in our packet, you didn't include the price of moving the Roman candle building. How much was that approximately again?
Everyone we talked to said that the route is going to be the most important factor in the cost of moving a historic building. Likely here, land acquisition costs, if the city had to acquire land to decide where to put the building, that's probably going to be even higher than the cost to move a building. Also, the estimates that we got did not include the cost for pouring a new foundation. So Likely just moving a building, if it's a short distance and it doesn't require lifting a lot of power lines, it's probably going to be less than 100,000. What it wouldn't factor in though is that business would have to go out of business for a period of time, and I don't know how that would factor into the relocation requirements.
Any other question? Dan, you have a question? Anyone else? Okay, so we need to move forward. So somebody ready to make some motion?
I'll make a motion that which option we want to go with?
Yes.
The north widening with compromise.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion now on that option? Yes?
So I just want to make sure that the council understands that with both sides option and the north compromise, that there was a landscaping plan that was proposed for St. Bernard's that would be part of any of those options. So when we're looking at it, it's not just that acquisition of land, but it's also the landscaping commitment we made to St. Bernard's.
So that's included in your motion, Kathy?
In here already, isn't it?
Okay. So that is part of the motion.
I would like to at least say this is an option where I do have concerns about pedestrian safety. And just to suggest to everybody, we need to be thinking, is this going to be the ideal configuration going forward? Because this is going to be our one chance to set what this intersection will look like for the next 50 to 100 years. It's not like we're going to be able to, 30 years from now, when it's again congested, go back and reconfigure it easily.
Well, that's a good point. A lot can change.
So a lot can change.
Yes.
So I
And
think
if,
we need to be
yes.
thinking going forward. I'm also I have concerns that we need to really be considering that Parmenter is going to become even more of a major north-south street too, with all the development going up on the Parmenter corridor in Tribeca. So we need to think about that as to which is the best option.
Yeah, those are very good points. Some other questions or any other questions? If there are no more questions, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Dan,
No.
seconded.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone opposed?
Oh, I did get that.
Okay, so the one motion passes by 7-1. All right, we move on to the next phase now. So this is we are on to the agreements now. Number 1, development agreement for tax increment finance district 3 assistance for Seco Foods.
Move approval is recommended by finance. Second.
Any questions? If there are no more questions, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. The next one is award of bid and quote for professional services. Award of bid to Clemens Excavating for Lakeview Path construction.
I'll move that we reject the bids and rebid in the spring.
Need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? If there's no more discussion, I call the question. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. So the next one is award of professional services agreement with Ayer and Associates for design work at Taylor Park.
Move approval is recommended by PRFC and finance.
Second.
Any questions? If there are no more questions, I call the question. All those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. The next one is the award of professional services contract with on-site logging for tree removal services.
Move approval is recommended by PRFC and finance.
Second.
It's just finance.
Any discussion? Any questions? If there's no more question, I call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. We are on to miscellaneous. Middleton Tourism Grant to USSA CXC Ski Association for trail development for $30,000.
Move approval. Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, if there's no more, you want to say something?
2 points. Where is this again? Where's this going to be?
The ski trail, this
Yeah.
is in the,
Where's the urban property?
this is in town of Middleton.
Town of Middleton, okay. Not the city.
No, no. But I think, Mike, you want to say that it will be at some stage owned by the city?
No,
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
Say that.
Okay, all right.
Well, in fact, what Dan Erdman had proposed for the grant application that was approved was that he would dedicate the land that was necessary for the grant, the DNR grant is what I'm referring to now. That's the $350,000 grant that we talked about back in April. So, yes, technically, that land would be owned by the city as a condition of the DNR grant, which we haven't received yet.
Okay, it's only if we get that grant. Okay, any more questions or any more discussion?
So, just a second.
Yes.
So, say that again for me, would you please? If we get the $350,000 grant, that's predicated on, he would then dedicate that land to the city?
Yes, DNR could only give those grant funds to an entity that has a public open space plan, such as the city of Middleton.
So it
So
would
we
become
are,
ours.
we are indeed talking about a cooperative venture here with the town of Middleton and this, I don't want to make any amendments to that. That's what we're talking about. It would be a joint venture, city and the town, long-term. And to get access to those trails, we have a capital project, we talked about that last week, to extend the parkway from the golf course and a trail from Pleasant View Road, where it currently ends, all the way to the Erdman property. So that's more of the city partnership in this, yet to be determined with approvals by the council.
But the grant we have before us tonight is for development of trails in the city of Middleton.
No.
It's
Or
in
I mean the town.
but it
I mean
could
the
be
town.
on land that is dedicated to the city.
You mean annexed?
No.
No, it's not annexed, no.
No, it's
So
like we
this-
talked about before, Larry. It's land that would be dedicated to the city through this grant award by the DNR. We talked
It
about
would
that.
still be in the town.
Correct.
Okay.
So
Yes, it is.
explain what dedication of land means.
It would be the cities to maintain in some cooperative venture.
Okay, so we would be responsible for maintaining it, but it would still be land in the town of Middleton.
Correct. Not annexed to the city.
Okay, any more questions about this grant or, yeah, especially for grants, so,
I'm sorry.
yes.
Why would
Mark.
the city of Middleton be interested in maintaining property that's in the town of Middleton?
Well, I thought the presentation was pretty explanatory. You know, there's a huge potential tourism impact, economic impact for the community to having this. And it's our hotels. The town doesn't have any hotels that would get the Olympic athletes coming here, as well as the community benefit we'd share with the town. We'd actually share it with all of Dane County and anybody from around the state that comes here to use these trails. In fact, Yuri mentioned Park City, Utah. Well, my nephew and niece, I learned from Facebook, were just there visiting the Olympic facility, which is also a recreational facility for that community. And they wouldn't have been there but for that facility.
Well, why wouldn't the town of Middleton want to maintain these trails?
They don't have park and open space plans, so they're not eligible to get the grant from the DNR.
It is to facilitate that we can get that grant and get this project going. And city
Well-
council approved it.
But I guess what I'm trying to ask is, forget the grant part, why wouldn't the town of Middleton want to maintain these trails? Since it's on their property.
Well, it's not their property, it's Dan Erdman's property.
Well, but it's within the town.
It's in the town, and there would be some benefit to town residents as well.
Maybe Matt will speak to this,
Yes,
but I
Matt.
believe the Olympic area will be maintaining the trails.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right, so.
responsibility of maintaining the trail.
If we're awarded the DNR grant, the city's requirement is to keep them in recreational use for 50 years. we would likely have an agreement in place with the operational entity, Yuri's group, to maintain the trails.
Good. Any other questions? Okay, if there are no more questions, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so motion passes 7-1. So the next one is 2018 Unity Renewal Proposal for City Employees Health Insurance. Mike, you want to take it off?
Move approval is recommended by finance.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? If there are no more discussion, I call the question. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I think it seems like a good plan with 2% raise. So, okay, so the next one is polling place assignments.
Move deferral.
All right, any more discussion on this one? Okay, if there's no more discussion, I call the question. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. So the next one is the number 4 is policy revisions, and it is an assessment for maintenance of sidewalks.
Move approval.
Need a second.
Second.
Okay. Discussion.
Yeah, there
Yes,
is
Robert.
This was just not well written because of all the changes that were made, and it was originally written by engineers, not by attorneys. I would recommend that this be looked at by some attorneys, either the city attorney or somebody else, to kind of revamp it. I just found quite a few areas where I thought it was confusing and not very clear if there was what things had to happen before certain things kicked into place.
Okay. So do you accept that amendment to the motion?
Are we moving approval per the city attorney's review, or?
I don't want to speak for Larry. Larry, would this be
Larry,
something
what
that
do you
you, I mean, I could give you my take on what I saw of concern.
And as you already started to do, obviously, as I said, these are documents from 1984 and 2010, and as you said, they're simply additions. If you wanted to have a staff review, and I include myself in staff of the specific language, but the council is approving the concepts, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, so is that okay?
I heard Howard say this, and I would agree. It is just policy.
This is just policy, it's not an ordinance.
He just has to fix the language. That's all there is to it. So.
No, but there's a difference between just policy for the Public Works Department versus a city ordinance.
Significant difference. We refer our ordinances to our legal staff to make them codified.
But think about it this way. If we can't, as a council, understand how this works, how do we explain it to constituents? So I think to have it a very clear document would be very helpful, especially as Public Works personnel change, so that no one has to remember how it works, but it's very clearly laid out. I think that would be in our best interest.
And I'll accept those changes to my motion.
Okay. Is that okay with the second? Or somebody else wants to second? Okay, I need a second then, folks.
I'll second.
Okay, Joanna second this modified motion. So
just to be clear then, are we talking about subject to the city attorney's final review and approval?
Yes.
Does the council want to see that final product back?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay, so the motion is to approve it subject to the city attorney's final review and approval?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Well, Elizabeth, you're the mover. I want to make
Yes.
sure that you agree. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion on this one? If there are no more discussion or questions, all of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion is passed, and Larry, you got some work for you. So.
Oh boy.
All right, next one is planning and zoning. Concept review request for tax incremental District 5 assistance for Trista mixed use development, including Middleton Market.
Move approval is, concept approval is recommended by Finance Committee.
Second.
Okay, any discussion, folks?
I just had a question for Abby. Follow up to Mark's comment previously. He mentioned we have about 1,000 units coming online over the next couple of years, and you mentioned that we have a Parmenter area concept TID 5 plan. Where in that, or where can I find public safety in terms of capacity? I'm really worried when you put apartments in, you get more phone calls for the police, and where does that capacity come in?
That is not in the Parmenter concept plan, because the concept plan just strictly was looking at land uses, and it's pretty conceptual. But I bet you that Chief has, I know that they have very stringent staffing requirements and plans, and I'm guessing that there's something in there that talks about population and the level of staffing that the police department would need.
Chief, you want to say anything?
Sure. I think I've been pretty consistent that I'm concerned about the number of apartment complexes that have been approved in the last several years and the lack of increase in police staffing and city staffing in general. So while our 5-year staffing plan didn't necessarily take into account the urban infill that Middleton has gone to in the last several years, and certainly any high-density apartments do have more calls for services, it's a very much of a concern of mine. And I hear you talking about vacancy rates and saturation levels and so on, but I don't see factoring in police calls for service or city staff calls for service in general. And it's something I think we need to include in our, when we approve these projects.
So you have more calls to apartment buildings than residential neighborhoods?
Absolutely. Anytime you have density, you're going to have more police calls.
Is it more per unit, or you got a lot more people in the apartments too when you compare?
I think it's when you have density, what you do in your private home perhaps doesn't disturb somebody, but when you have high density apartment complexes, no matter what the price point is of those rents, there's just more of a tendency to bother somebody, to stick out, to be noticed, to have a call for service for police. So density does add to our calls.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Any other questions or comments? Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so that's 2 or 3? 2. 6 to 2.
6-2.
Okay, so the motion passes 6 to 2. So the next one is specific implementation plan, Oak Ridge Senior Apartments.
I'll move approval.
Need a second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion, any questions? Okay, if, I'm sure it has similar concern as Chief pointed out before. If there are no more questions or concerns, I call the question. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so the motion passes. Now, next one is the recommendation, proposal, direction concerning the downtown plaza project.
Do you need further direction? No.
Okay, this is just for discussion. So the next item is the referrals, recommendations from Sustainability Committee and the Pedestrian, Bicycle and Transit Committee to add 2 additional members to their committees.
We discussed it at Bike and Pedestrian, and I believe that decision was made that the motion to accept a couple members with some conditions. Those conditions being that we needed somebody with some transit experience, mass transit experience. We are bike heavy, so transit experience and some experience either with handicapped issues or pedestrian issues. So it was a qualified, wouldn't you say that? Qualified agreement that had 2 people.
Okay. So what's your motion now?
I'll move approval.
Okay.
Oh, although yes, well, I didn't know if I should bring it up in discussion. This hasn't been referred to L&O. These are
Okay.
ordinances, correct?
So you want to,
They're not ordinances?
They are part of the ordinances. Committee membership is.
So we
So
don't
wouldn't
want
a
to refer
referral to L&L be in order? To draft it?
That's what I just, yes. But is that a discussion question or is it a point of order?
Well, I think it would be more appropriate for us to decide, do we want to increase the size of the committees, and it should go to L&O then to draft it.
It's a two-part question then, yeah.
Okay. And I will move approval based on the recommendation.
based on recommendation for sustainability and the bike and ped, and then ask the LNOI to make whatever is needed, so.
I will
Were
second
there-
that motion.
Okay?
Were there any conditions on the sustainability recommendation?
Okay, any more discussion? Any questions? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All of those in favor? Yes, Howard.
I'd just like to express my concern that we find it necessary, when we find good volunteers for committee appointments in the city, that we start increasing the number of people that are on committees. I don't think that's the way to do it. I think we need to wait for vacancies to occur if it happens according to predetermined times, then that's when we can replace people. But I don't think it's in our best interest to just start adding people to committees and commissions around the city. I don't think it's the way to do it.
Thank you, Howard.
We looked to that issue at Bike and Pedestrian, and that came up in conversation. And the only reason that we agreed to this was because the number of citizen members of the committee were low. We've got a planning commission, council, public works, aging, and so because we agreed with you at that, you get too many people, it just gets awkward.
There are only 2 citizen members on
So that's
bike and ped.
from the Bike and Pedestrian Committee outlook. That's where we came with that.
When the committees and commissions were initially created, it was very carefully thought through how the interrelationship should go between committees and commissions, how many people should be appointed. And I've already spoken my opinion.
And
Okay, yes.
I would
Susan.
be a little more comfortable if we considered each committee separately.
I'm happy to split up. I'm going to start, then I just move approval based for PED. Let's start with Alan.
Okay, so need a second.
Oh,
Okay, so, all right, so any more question or discussion about that one? Okay, then I call the question. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so, all right, so the next one? Well, the motion passes.
Was that 2 no's or 3 no's?
2 noes?
I
2
just have
noes.
one nose.
Howard and,
This is only for bike ped.
Yes.
right.
Okay, so the,
And sustainability did approve this, right? Okay. Approval based on sustainability.
I will second that.
okay, any questions? Okay, if there are no more questions, I call the question. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so,
Roll call.
okay, roll call.
Star,
No.
West,
No.
Sullivan,
No.
Gill,
Nope.
Petrick,
No.
Olson,
Yes.
Ramsey,
Yes.
Burke.
Yes.
Okay, so motion will pass, so. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, we are adjourned.